the in-person experience.
That's right.
All right, guys, I know we're on a time schedule, so I'm glad that I'm able to help you guys in every way I can.
No problem.
We are
I know
We
you're
are-
trying to throw the bet to Jenny, but you know.
we are live for real again.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties with the microphone. I would like to call the Henrietta Town Board Workshop meeting for October 13th, 2020 to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Here.
Councilmember Stafford,
Here.
Councilmember Safranek,
Here.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin tonight's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Feel my pain now.
So we have no new special use permits this coming week. We have one presentation for the CHS Citizen CPR Award presentation. That's for Kate Hannon, who essentially saved a life at a softball game with quick acting CPR. We have 4 continuation. Well, I think one might be new. Yeah, one's new. The others are continuation public hearings. The first one is 1140 Martin Road, endangering trees. So we did get a quote for the cost to do that. Split between the 3 properties would be $150 each. I've sent the letters out. I haven't received response yet, but they only went out recently. So hopefully there'll be some resolution for that. My thought is we just close the public hearing. If someone wants to speak, great. If not, we just close it down because one of 2 things going to happen. Either they'll all agree to it, in which case it'll be resolved, or they won't agree to it, in which case we will bring in a land surveyor to determine what the property is, and then we'll start a new action based off of, you know, the definitive determination as to whose property contains that tree. So either way, I don't see that we need to continue that public hearing. So Riverton Parcel E, I will be sending out an update that I just received just before the meeting to the GIS map I had requested them to make. They had a couple parcels misidentified, mostly the Parcel A parcels they had as part of the park, and they're not. Doesn't change the impact on their application. It changes the percent of open, or the amount of parkland in the Riverton area, but I had subtracted that out, but I just wanted it to be correct for the record.
Okay.
We have not fully heard back yet from state and county on all of the traffic stuff, so we're not going to be ready to rule on the seeker at this meeting. But we didn't know that at the time we had put forth the meeting. So again, if anybody's there for public comments, we'll hear them. But again, this one will probably be extended for at least one more meeting. Part of being because I think when we get those results, the people are going to want to be able to comment on them. Mm-hmm. In terms of the petitions, I've received roughly 90 something against the development and 1 that is for the development. And those were from residents. The 1-4 was not someone who worked at the company. The proposed local law to revert original zoning, again, those were properties that were inadvertently rezoned as part of the comprehensive land use plan update. I only noticed it recently. If you recall, we had taken any parcels that were currently apartment complexes that were in zones that were going to lose multifamily as an allowed use. We rezoned them out to R215 so that they wouldn't become pre-existing non-conforming. We inadvertently did it in one area that the zoning still allows multifamily. So we shouldn't have zoned them out. They should have stayed in the original. So we're just reverting it back to how it was.
Okay.
And then Tesla Motors, as you've been seeing, we've been getting a lot of emails from folks in the Tesla owners club. One of the things on that, I did have a talk with Al Gore Jr. And he apologized for some of the conduct of some of their personnel in that hearing. He thought they could have handled it much better. He basically did say that they were amending, and I think we did receive their amended application, so that's not asking for a sales showroom. They also are, he was personally committing the company that they will not have unplated vehicles stored on the site, and he understands that if they do have them there, that we will cite them for it. He is working with the DMV to get New York manufacturer plates so that they can be plated in New York on site for the test drives. They would not have sales activities. Again, the only correspondence I've seen from DMV, there's nothing definitive that they've given. The only thing I've seen seems to indicate that they're fully aware of what's going on and they have no objections to it. He did also express an interest in potentially someday getting a sales office here, in which case they would probably expand their facility. But that they'd have to, there's more room in that building.
Right, but they could go to a dealership now and we could have a partnership with a deal like Ford or Chevy or any of them.
They can't do it as a partnership. It has to be independent under New York State law. They have 5 dealerships currently.
But what I'm saying is, what prevents them from doing what every other dealership does with car manufacturers, like BMW has Holtz or?
Their argument is that raises the price.
Right. Well,
because now the dealer has to make money off of the sale.
Right.
okay.
So there's nothing that prevents them from doing it other than it's not how they wish to do things. They look at it sort of like how Apple sells direct they have Apple stores, they sell direct. They have 5 licenses. They're talking about whether they can potentially convince the state to get additional licenses or whether they transfer one of the downstate licenses up here. But, they did express an interest in doing that. Obviously, if that happens, they would come back to update the special use permit. And again, they would probably expand the facility to have more space. But they understood that without that dealership license, it means that they can't have the unplated vehicles or unregistered vehicles on the lot as per town code. The exemption exists for dealer showrooms, but not for other use. The only other exemption is actually like if somebody's car fails inspection and they've removed the sticker, it can still be on site while it's being serviced, even though so that those are the 2 exceptions to those rules. Go ahead.
Is anybody going to be here from Tesla tomorrow? Do you know?
I'm not positive on that. I will reach out to find that answer out. I think so. In fact, I think Al Gore Jr. is going to be there.
Yeah, I had also talked to Albert, and he said that they were interested in potentially doing some licensing here, which will take care of this too.
Right.
I told him to make sure he called you to speak about it because he was apologetic for how he thought some of their employees acted at the last hearing.
So, like I said, it's, in the people who responded when I explained to them, they kind of didn't fully understand how the stuff works, as you saw. And most of them, when the people who were saying we should approve the permit, when I explained to them the process, most of them were like, oh, that makes sense.
Right.
So, in terms of, I think people generally understand it. And also the representative from the Auto Dealership Association also understood our position in terms of, that it's not our place to get in an argument as to whether an educational showroom is in violation of motor vehicle laws. What I intend to work with Don on when we write the authorizing, I'm going to put together essentially based off of what we have today. Here's what, we might edit it based off of stuff tomorrow, but we'll put together our best guess as to what the special use permit will be. And one of the conditions on there will be that, in other words, the special use permit would get pulled if it is deemed an illegal activity by the Department of Motor Vehicles. But today it's not. So, as you saw, we heard from one of the other dealers in town, not happy about it, but as I explained to him, again, we won't give them a special use permit for a sales showroom, but they, in their amended, that's not what they're asking for, and they're not going to have sales activities on premises, and they're not going to have unplated vehicles. So from a land use standpoint, they've kind of met those requirements.
And that's important that they not have unplated vehicles. I think Councilman Stafford went by and viewed that they did have some
Correct.
unplated ones.
Yep.
And they owned up to that too.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
Vehicles can be stored on the location.
There is, because they have to have a certain number of parking spaces for customers. And if I remember correctly, and Chris, chime in if I get this wrong, I think there was the ability, or Chris or Kevin, I think there was ability for 5 spaces. In other words, they had 5 above what code requires. So they could have 5 non-customer vehicles there. To go above that, they would have to go in front of the zoning board to get a variance on their parking.
So they were.
Yeah, that's correct, Steve. I think it was between 5 and 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I had 6. So there you go.
6 is between 5 and 7, so we're in agreement. Okay.
So if they had more than 6 vehicles that were there, that would just be taking up their own customer spaces.
That's correct. And again, it's one of those, if it was there because one came in and was going to be there for a day before the other one left, no big deal. If every single day they had 10 cars there, that's a problem.
We already know they like to, from past experience, we already know they like to skirt the, right there. So are we going to send it out and, inspector every day to see if, I think that's ridiculous to say that we're going to, if they're there every day, because we have no way of knowing. So I just, okay.
Well, again, code enforcement will be aware of it, and it's a high traffic area, so it's one that they could go by. And if they see unplated vehicles, they can make a stop in and cite them.
Or I'm sure the competition will make note of that and report it.
Right. Good point.
So the parking that they are allowed to use is in front of the building?
It's
There's a whole bunch of parking going down the side of the building, and that's where I saw all the vehicles when I drove through.
It's basically, they have a certain number of parking spaces. They can't use any of the designated handicap spaces, but any of their up to 6 of their customer spaces, because they have 6 more than is required by code, they can use 6 of them for these educational vehicles.
Okay.
If they want to have more than 6, they would need to get a variance.
Just as a reminder, we had issues with them once before when they opened their service area without the proper permits. On the meeting 2 weeks ago, or 2.5, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, when you asked her about unplated vehicles, she said absolutely not. And it wasn't until a few minutes later when I pressed her more that she says, well, maybe there is. Well, here's, I went over there that evening, and there's the pictures of the unplated vehicles. So just so everybody's clear that they did have unplated vehicles, and they sat there and told us they didn't until they were pressed on the issue.
Yeah, I went the
Right.
next morning and there was unplated, but then I went like 3 days later and everything had a plate on it.
Right. And do those plates belong to the correct
Right.
vehicle or not?
So
That's
manufacturer plates are not assigned to a specific vehicle.
well, I don't know if they're manufactured. They're not
I'm- That's fine.
in New York State, dealers' plates have dealer written on the bottom of their plates. New Jersey, those are all New Jersey plates, and they do not have anything written on. You wouldn't know the difference between those plates and a regular. So I'm curious if those plates belong to the car or they're dealer plates or how they do it.
Don't know.
Okay.
You're welcome to ask them. I
Thank
guess
you.
the question is, Don, from the sounds of it, Mike is asking whether lying to the board in the past is sufficient grounds for denying a special use permit.
I think when we're dealing with a special use permit, we want to look at the factors in our code that we recently rewrote, apply them against the application, and move forward based on those factors. If we move forward based on inaccurate information, then we certainly have the ability to revoke the approval based on a fraudulent misrepresentation.
Okay.
When you draft up the approval, will there be mention of how many vehicles that?
Millie, is your mic on?
Sorry,
Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
I thought it was on. Will there be mention of a limit of how many educational vehicles will be allowed on the premises?
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll have that. We'll have the thing about that, the no unplated vehicles, about the potential for citation, no sales activity. There'll be a thing in there again about that if the activity is deemed unlawful by the Department of Motor Vehicles, that the special use permit would be revoked.
Steve, doesn't the code say something about you can only have 2 unlicensed vehicles if you're a dealer or something like that?
No.
I thought there was a limitation in there.
No, they can have, the 2, what you're thinking of is for a resident. In a residential property, I can only have 1 unplated vehicle for sale up to 30 days, and I can only sell 2 total in a 12-month period. That's where the 2 is coming from. Dealers have more than that.
So to be clear, if a year from now, we haven't had any activity and we drive by there, or one of us drives by there and sees an unplated vehicle, we're going to yank the special permit?
No, we're going to cite them for section 207.
Okay.
Now, what we have to, what we can discuss at the public hearing is what kind of threshold, in other words, let's say they're violating it every week.
Right.
At what point do those violations pile up to where we pull their special use permit? I don't know that answer. That's why I was saying there's probably going to be some editing live tomorrow at the public hearing, but I want to at least have the framework to cover all the points that we've talked about. Again, all the ones I just mentioned. So, and then, like I said, if we think of others, we'll add those as stipulations on it. But no, they wouldn't be pulled for a unlicensed, just as, minor violations like that, other people don't lose their special permit, they get cited for it, so. Any other questions on that one? So for number 3, for Good Shepherd Church, I know some of you were able to get there today. Someone asked about all the desks stored in there. That's because of COVID. The school basically had to reduce the desks in the classroom by half. They filled that up, and I believe they even have storage elsewhere too. They had to rent storage somewhere.
I think they told us he had 3 trailers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was funny. I said something to Steve. It didn't even dawn on me that that's why they were there. I'm just like, why are they putting all these?
Oh, yeah. Yep, it
My
was.
brain didn't function that way.
Yeah, it was, had to, maybe you were, when Ken was in the other room or something, him and I, he mentioned to me that
Oh,
they had
did he?
to separate all the desks 6 feet apart, and that's when they got all the.
I knew they had to do it, but
The plate.
it just didn't go into the brain that way.
How many desks are in there? There's a lot of
There's
desks.
a lot of desks.
So as you see, it's a large space. My initial thoughts are we wouldn't use the basement at all. I'd probably close it off. Someday in the future, if use is that extensive, we could take a look at adding it. I think initially I would close off the upper balcony as well. At some point, I would want to add a extension to the railing. If you were up there, it sure felt like you could take a header over that very easily.
Somebody wanted to give you a little.
I was
Right.
thinking the same thing for safety to
Right.
close that off.
And as Lisa noted, there is a bunch of painting and other work that would need to get done. The nice thing is they pretty much, almost all of the religious iconography is is no longer there.
Right.
The sole exception are the crosses on the lights.
Yeah. He said they sold most of the stuff prior to turning it over, so.
But, one of the things, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to be there with you because we were meeting with the folks from the Freemasons. But in the back, one of the things we were looking at is in that back area, we would open that up a little bit for the kitchen area so that you had, like the cabins that you can have food and stuff, bring in catering or something like that.
Yeah. Well, and it was nice because they have the chairlift there
Right.
to go up the stairs.
We've talked about, the other thing is at the far back, there's that stairwell entrance that comes in pretty much at ground level for the main apps. That's where we were talking about if we did a handicap wheelchair access, it would probably come in right there. So that way it's in the ramp would actually go backwards towards the parking lot. And that way it has the least impact on the historic property while still allowing wheelchair coming. That's if we went with the ramp method. If we went with the lift method, it would probably go in the front entrance, like off to the right. Like I said, that my thoughts are initially we would, again, do things kind of incrementally on a personnel available basis. Not looking to spend a whole lot to do a whole lot of renovations. As it starts to generate revenue and as our other revenues recover from the pandemic, then we can start taking a look at, so again, initially there might not be a working kitchen. There won't be access to the basement. There won't be access to the loft, stuff like that. But then as, the stuff's available, we would take a look at that. So any other questions on that?
Just my concern, we can talk about it, just the parking issue. So
Right.
we'll be talking about that tomorrow, I'm sure.
Well, the building does need some work, so.
Yes, it does.
Number 4 is the local law to rezone properties. Oh, that's the one. That's the same one. That's the public hearing. Never mind.
Right.
Any other discussion on that?
Nope.
5, the secret determination for 4799. Chris, do you want to talk to that a little? Because I know we received an update from the state and county.
Yeah, so basically this one is for the Burger King, but also for the plaza as well as an overall. So it's a Burger King, another future fast food or drive-through restaurant, an office building, and then a smaller retail building, which could be built like that or could be modified. So this seeker covers all of those. The big issue on this one is traffic. We've heard from the Monroe County DOT and also from the New York State DOT as well. They both have some concerns. Mainly it's the entrance off of onto West Henrietta Road. The state wants to have a left in, right in, but only a right out on the West Henrietta Road. Very similar to the Wendy's restaurant. And then the other issue really on Lehigh Station Road, which that section is a county road. The county wants to give them one entrance and then they want 2. So there's still some issues that have to be reworked, but overall the seekers had a good point, and I don't see any reason why we couldn't vote on that or that could be voted on Wednesday night.
And we could make the special use permit contingent upon them successfully working out any issues with the state and county DOTs. Is that correct, Don?
Right, go ahead, Don.
Yes.
Short and sweet. Go, Chris.
Oh, as far as the special permit, There is a provision in there if there's any conditions that we want to put in. I did add one to this extent that said that they had to comply with New York State DOT and Monroe County DOT comments.
Right.
So if the board wants to add any more, they could certainly do that.
I did have a question on this. How do they, if you don't know what other businesses are going in there, how do they determine the potential traffic value? I mean, you say an office building, well, if it has 5 people in it, it's one thing. If it has 105 people, it could be a different story.
Exactly, Mike. And here's what we typically do for something like this is there's a manual that we use, the ITE traffic manual. They use that as a rough idea. If like you got a call center in there, then it's a significant enough change that we would make them come back to the planning board. Or maybe it's not a call center, maybe it's something with a lower use. If that's the case, then we don't have to worry about it. It's really kind of a dart on the wall, so to speak, but as we go through the planning board process, we can refine that. And if they need to redo the traffic study for a planning board, then so be it.
Yeah, basically to put simply, if they'll be approved to a particular level, if the final use comes in above that level, then they come back.
Okay.
If they're within that level or below, then they don't need to come back.
And the
Right, and sometimes the site will dictate that as well. If like the office building, if they put in a call center, they would need a lot more parking. So, you know, maybe the site wouldn't work, or they'd have to get rid of the retail in order to make that work.
And the final question I have is, you know, we approved for a Burger King over on Lehigh. Have they withdrawn that application or anything? I mean, we don't want 2 Burger Kings, you know, we heard from these people that they're the ones who got the right to it, but do we know that for a fact?
I have not seen anything in writing. I've certainly heard from the applicant's engineer for both projects that they wouldn't be pursuing that, but I have not heard or seen anything in writing to that extent.
Okay, you said they would not be pursuing that, the one on Lehigh?
Right, they would not be pursuing the Burger King on Lehigh Station Road.
The Lehigh one is only moving forward with the Taco Bell right now.
Okay. Yep.
That's correct. Yeah, the Taco Bell is still going forward, but that's the only one.
Thank you.
Item 7, calling for a public hearing for a local law to allow town board to set longer durations. So the U of R project is roughly $275 million project, ballparkish. It's going to take longer than 18 months to complete. Rather than have them essentially be out of compliance from the get-go, you know, they were asking, could they get longer? When Don and I looked at the current writing, there was no good mechanism to do that. You know, one of the things we were concerned about was, does everybody come in and make that request? But the thing is, if we only allow the extensions for the large project ones, we only get a couple of those a year. So even if, you know, once we approve one, if every other one comes to us, it's not a huge burden. And even then, when you look at them, like if you look at the recent larger projects, they were done probably in the time span of a small project because retail was dependent on them getting the thing built. You know, look how fast Starbucks went in, look how fast Hobby Lobby went in. You know, once they started building, Chick-fil-A is moving right along. So for the most part, in those types of things, we don't have an issue. So like I said, I'm not that worried about it, but I wrote up the initial local law. I don't know if it's gotten all the way out to you guys yet, because I was first bouncing it off of Don, in terms of, but basically, I think I might have sent it in a summary in an email that it basically says that if a developer needs more than the 18-month period for a large project, they make a request to the Director of Building and Fire Prevention, who then brings it to the board for approval or denial.
Okay.
If they're denied, they get the 18 months. If they're approved, it can be longer. And I didn't bother putting an upper cap or a whole lot of requirements on it because, you know, they're going to be so one-off. You know, what if they wanted to build, I'm not saying we would have it happen here, but like the new Bills Stadium, if they wanted to build it in Henrietta, right? That's going to take even longer and be a much bigger project than the U of R, obviously. So, you know, trying to set some upper limit on it becomes very difficult.
So as far as months, like 24 months would be the max side of that, or no?
There is no max.
No max, okay.
So for instance, they are expecting their project to take 24 months. So I would actually look at doing it for longer than that, for
Gotcha.
27 to 30.
Okay.
Because you don't, if their estimate is 24 months, I wouldn't want to put it right at 24 months in case it goes a little bit longer. Now, they would still get a 6 months extension, one extension, but after that, then they would have to re-up, which wouldn't be cheap.
Right.
That
That makes sense.
So that's what we're looking at. And again, it's only for large projects. Number 8, the youth board term limits. So we've been having a lot of discussion back and forth. I think it's finally nailed down. I joked with Jenny to, you know, maybe write it in pencil so we can change it. The issue what we're going with, they want to go to 2-year terms. They were trying to figure out when is the best time to have the term expire. They were looking at, could they have the terms overlap? But then you run into the problem is during that overlap, you've got more people than on the board voting that is allowed by bylaws. So I said, you know, set your term. And then what you can do is if the senior people, the students who are leaving want to stay on as ex officio mentors to the new people on board, you can do that. The key is that they can't be able to vote, or else then you've exceeded the number of votes per your bylaws. So I think they're looking at that it's going to be basically, I think it was July 1st to June 30th, or maybe it was August 1st to July 31st, but it's midsummer with the idea that they didn't want to do it necessarily too close to, they wanted to have it done, the transition to happen during the school year, not in January like the adult membership.
Okay.
And then the second thing is, like we did with some of the other boards, instead of having the adult membership be a 2-year term where half the board changes over every year, we wanted to go to a 3-year term. And so the majority of the be it further resolves are just how do we deal with the transition from the 2-year to a 3-year.
That makes sense.
And Barb and Jesse from the, Barb Christensen and Jesse Redlow from the youth board have been in on that discussions, as Anita, who's the rec supervisor who works with the youth board. So,
Great.
Pam, is there anything that needs to be added to that? I'll take that as a no. For number 9, remote solar project pilot agreement. We're struggling with fighting with the county right now. They wanted their own agreement, this whole thing. It makes no sense to do it in 2 parts. We put together an amendment. We kept all their language whole. I'm hoping we're on the home stretch here. There was a little confusion from the school district because we had last worked on this with them in February. And so he was just like, why are they, I basically had to remind them where the numbers came from, because we have a ongoing inspection requirement. Our portion is higher than the normal allotment based off of just tax jurisdiction.
Okay.
And so, but basically the breakdown is 1,000 to the town, 1,000 to the county, and 2,000 to the school district per megawatt. So since this is a 5 megawatt, that would be 5,000 to the town, 5,000 to the county, 10,000 to the school. And then I wanted to see a 2% escalator clause in there. So that was in there at one point. It may or may not have disappeared. It seems like it's in the language, but it's not in the fee schedule. So I'm going to make sure that that's in there. But, and then basically, once it's all done, we will need to approve it. The county legislature will need to approve it, and the school district will need to approve it. Any questions on that?
How long is that agreement for? Does that expire?
The agreement, to my knowledge, is there for the entire time the solar panels are there.
Okay.
I will
Could be,
double
what,
check
30
that.
years, 20, 30 years,
Was
right?
it 25?
25 is, I think, what it lists. But I will verify that.
So do they have the anticipated time this might start, assuming all these things get done?
They talked about it, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. Chris or Craig, do either of you remember if they've given the nice thing is that they don't need to disturb the ground a whole lot. They basically are driving posts in the ground. So, so they can start even after the time when you wouldn't be able to, get grass to regrow. But like I said, I don't know what their schedule is. I don't know how much.
Yeah, I can answer. I can answer that, Steve. It's Chris Martin. They are starting to gear up. They have resubmitted site plans. So my understanding is they would like to get started this fall. Of course, a lot of it depends on the weather and such, but as far as the town signing off on the plans, we're probably within a couple weeks.
Thanks, Mr. Martin.
You're welcome.
Number 10 is the one that was, came in on Friday. And originally, or I guess it was Thursday because Sarah was still here. And I misunderstood what she was saying. So originally I didn't think it needed to go to the town board, but when I got the contract, it came in yesterday. When I read it this morning, I realized that the two new appraisals were for the Barbary Cove certiorari action. The town had had approved a 14 grand not to exceed number. This would put us 2,000 over. So because it was previously a board action, it needed to come back to the board. As you saw, my recommendation is that we add a little bit extra on there. So an additional 4,000. They have an hourly rate as to what they would need to do from a trial preparation, because indications currently are that they're going to trial. Now, again, having been through, never through a certiorari action, but having been through a number of intellectual property ones, I do find that the closer you get to trial, the more likely the settlement occurs as people start to understand the risk and see that the other folks are willing to stick to their guns and go through with it, that there often is a last minute knuckling. That $4,000 would certainly not cover us all the way through the trial, but it should get us through some of the initial hearings. And again, using my history from intellectual property, often early on in the trial, you can get, whether it's certain early rulings or whether it's just comments from the judge as to, some indication as to, is this going to go one way or the other? Especially, what happens usually is when they first get in there, people try to put in motions for summary judgment. And again, depending on how the judge responds to that, you can sometimes get a feel for, okay, I might be in trouble, I better settle. So that's why, I figured that was enough to potentially get us started if we go that far. Hopefully not. We negotiated this primarily as a flat fee, with the understanding that a flat fee can't get us all the way through a trial. Hopefully it won't go that far. Hopefully, we'll see. Any questions on that one? And thanks to Sarah for getting us all set up before that, and she brought Shar fully up to speed. So Shar's been actually handling this since Sarah stepped down.
Great.
I'm going to skip ahead to 13, since that's the next one starred. If we have time, we'll come back to the other ones. The the 2021 fee schedules. So per Linda, we've got a bit more work to do on this one, so I don't know that we're going to, we might recommend whether we pull it or we discuss it tomorrow and table it. There's some stuff we need to go over. With all the stuff we've been doing on getting the budget going, we didn't spend enough time on wrapping this up.
Okay.
In addition, one of the things that came up, and it makes sense to do it at the same time, but U of R brought out the point that when you take our large project surcharge and scale it to something the size of their project, it becomes exorbitant, about $2.1 million. And that doesn't count the per square foot, the per plumbing fixture, all the other charges. That's just the large project surcharge. They pointed out that what a lot of towns do is they have a declining scale as the project gets bigger. And so one of the ones I've floated, and I have to talk to U of R about this, is that we would, the 0.008 rate would still be in place for the first $100 million of the project. To my knowledge, that would cover every single project that has been done since I've been in office. I'm not aware of any that have gone over 100 million. From 100 million to 200 million, it would be 0.006, and above 200 million, it would be 0.004. The result on this particular project, that drops it to about $1.7 million large project surcharge. So it saves them about $500,000. It obviously reduces our revenue by $500,000, but we also have to look at, are we charging a fair surcharge? It's going to be a lot of work. A lot's going to have to be sent out to outside agencies. But again, I think you have a hard time justifying the
Right.
2.1 million versus the 1.7 or 1.6. I don't know. It's about $500,000 savings. If I haven't sent it out already, I'll send out the spreadsheet that shows the change in the rate.
That'd be great, but that sounds fair to me.
When is it decided, when they have to pay that? Is it during construction, prior to construction? I thought it was at
It's
application.
as part of the application for the permit. They don't own the property, so one of the things that's going on right now, there is some battling going on with Dick's Sporting Goods. So if you remember when they were first looking at this, and this is back when it was still potentially at Macy's, Comida came in and, Comida came in and condemned some of the agreements, parking agreements, because they were, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, overbearing, that's not the right word, onerous. They were onerous, and they had not been able to negotiate the buying of them. Basically, people were looking at, I've got leverage here. You're not going to be able to do this big project without it. Obviously, it's in the towns and counties' interest to not have this project fall through. We don't want to see a Medley Center situation happen in the heart of Henrietta. So the county condemned them. When they settled on those agreements, again, at the time they settled, this was going to be over at Macy's. They gave the parking in front of Dick's Sporting Goods, so bounded on the north by Dick's Sporting Goods, on the east by Sears, and on the southwest, because it's kind of a triangle, by Miracle Mile Drive. That is Dick's reserved parking. It's for Dick's customers only. When they did that agreement, they did something that don't know that I would have put in there. They basically said that the county will never condemn any future agreements. It essentially took away any leverage they have to force someone to play ball. What's changed is when U of R is looking at their the layout of the Sears buildings, they wanted to use the existing garage entrances to bring supplies in. One of those garage entrances is on the west side. And Dick's is saying, no, you can't have a garage entrance there because then employees will park there. Well, my take on it is if you remove all human doors from over there and just have a garage door, no employee is going to park there, hit the garage door open, and especially because they're truck garage door types, they're these big industrial garage doors, and go in there. So I think they're being ridiculous. They've been offered a buyout amount to essentially make it all go away. They're pushing for more. I don't know if it's greed. I don't know if it's anger at the original condemnation action, but there's a chance that Wilmerite might ask the town to intervene. Hopefully we won't get to that point. But you know, one of the things that I said I'd be willing to say is that as a, you know, town supervisor, I do not want to see this fall through.
Exactly.
Because of that, and I will do whatever within my legislative authority to help make sure it doesn't fall through. Hopefully that message will be enough for Dick's to work out a deal with Wilmerite, and for Wilmerite to be fair as well.
Sure.
You know, but you know, I just wanted you guys to be aware that that's potentially happening with regards to but to my knowledge, everything else is in escrow, waiting to go. So as soon as they can clear this up, the sale will happen and the property transfer will take place.
It is important that this goes through. There's a substantial amount of jobs that are connected with this project for our town.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
And the not letting them all die, right?
Exactly.
The decline of the mall, especially during the COVID shutdown, I think
Right.
it's essential that we have something going in.
exactly.
So one of the things to note on that, people have been asking about the taxation. The property will initially be taxable. Basically, the tax-free status doesn't kick in from, this is my understanding from Sarah, so it's possible I have it wrong, but I think I've got it right. Their tax-free status does not kick in until they occupy the building for their primary use. So while it's being constructed, it will still be taxable. And then once they take over that, you know, if it's mid-year, that the following tax year, they will be completely tax-free. With that said, you know, the hope is if you look at where this has been done in other malls, the regrowth and rebirth of that mall will more than make up for the loss, not the $275 million worth,
Right.
but what the Sears building was, which was more around $7 or $8 million as a retail store. That the mall has lost more value than Sears is worth. So if we can even just get it halfway to where it had been, you'll more than make up for the loss from that parcel going tax-free.
Exactly.
So back to, did I hear you correctly that these fees are paid when they are issued the permit?
Is that correct, Kevin? They owe that check to get the permit?
That's correct. Now, I think we're looking at a phased construction, so I don't know if it's going to be in 2 parts or 3 parts.
Right. So they would first build the Sears, remodel the Sears building, and then, you know, later build the tower, and whether there's a 3rd phase in there, the mall wing TBD. So the point is, whichever portion of that phase they're doing, they would only owe the surcharge on that portion of the phase.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? Is Mike Clock on? Is Mike Clock coming in virtually or in person, Becky? All right, come on in, Mike. You didn't have to sit out there. Hey, come on in. Good.
How are you?
Jenny, I believe I won the bet.
What was the bet?
At the podium.
Oh, okay.
You don't get to sit.
Okay.
There is a mic at the table for him too, if you want to sit.
That's true, but.
No.
I thought she said that one doesn't work
Oh,
when she was in.
This thing on?
Yeah, that one's on. The handheld mics have some issues. I'm not a fan of them.
She said.
Thanks, Don.
Bye-bye, thanks.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so what I am proposing today, do we have the slides?
So for those following along the agenda, this is item number 20.
And I do have a hard copy if anybody wants one handy of the, at least of the itinerary portion of the.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's that printed page with all the text, I'll need that because I won't be able to read that from here.
Thank you, Mike. Good, and you?
Mike, just let me know when to go to the next pages.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
Okay.
So for those who don't know, Mike is the person responsible for leading the effort to build this course. He put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get it done. In last summer, 2019, he was a seasonal worker, and when there was an opening in the, he was a seasonal worker in buildings and grounds, and when there was an opening, Mike applied and has since been hired. He's a laborer in the buildings and grounds department. So in addition to his efforts for the disc golf course, which is on, it was called Riverside Park. It's essentially the same parcel that is the Riverton Golf Course. So in addition to doing that, Mike also, again, is a laborer in our buildings and grounds department. So go ahead, Mike, take it away.
I think I'll start by just simply reading this aloud. Current situation, the tee pads on the course we acquired in 2017. They were used football turf from Union College, PA. One of my friends that was a disc golfer in the community, part of the Greater Rochester Disc Golf Club, he put me onto the deal that they had going on, and right up the street in Scottsville, they had, they just unloaded a bunch of turf. So that was perfect for us to start out. That allowed us to place them where they needed to be in a very inexpensive way. Now that I've spent a lot of time, just going over where I want them to be, getting feedback from people saying, oh, this isn't right, you need to tweak this way, that way. I'm very much set on where they need to be. And the course has developed into a really, really, really challenging course. And we had a golden opportunity that most courses in the area have not had to place all skill levels. So further on here, so they were delivering rolls, and I hand cut all the 60 pads, 59 on there now, but there will be 60. So we got 18 red, 18 white, 18 blue, 6 gold. And so yeah, that correlates to beginner, intermediate, advanced, and professional as far as skill levels go. So some of the other courses in the area, they only have one set of tees, and they tend to be the longer tees. I'm not sure why. Go big or go home, I guess. I don't know. But since they don't have the shorter tees, kids are less likely to come back or be prone to, come back with their parents. And it's more of a family affair at Riverton, especially given the fact that we have carts, which is also something that no course in New York State has that I can even think of. There was one in the Buffalo area, but they didn't make it. So we got a good thing. Okay, so I guess we can go to the next slide now. Okay, so here is an example of one of the tee pads that was just damaged on the bottom. You can see basically, they get cut by the mowers. I did as much as I could to sort of tamp them down. But since I wanted to be able to move them, I didn't, secure them. I didn't screw them in the ground or stake them in the ground or anything. Most of them are okay as they are, but basically, some of them are bumpy, unlevel, and they can easily slip when it's raining out, which is not good for anybody, kids, adults, people in tournaments, all that.
And that one looks like it was from the end zone or center field.
Yes, which I think is pretty cool. But ultimately, I would like to move forward with what this proposal is about, is having really, really nice, cut tees to specific width, specific length, regulation tees that are approved by the PDGA.
Mike, looking at this picture, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of difference from shooting from the red, the blue, or the white.
No. Yep, absolutely right. Okay, next. So the solution to this would be installing permanent turf tee pads, fitted to size with frames.
Is that another damaged one or
That's
with
another damaged one.
Yep, that's another damaged one, yep.
Okay.
That is an example of what they would look like when they're finished. I came across these tee pads at Bond Lake in Niagara Falls, Buffalo area. One of the most beautiful courses I've ever seen in New York State. And they have 18 for the blue tees and 18 for the whites, just like that. So that was kind of the example I wanted to bring forth. And the guy who brought me the quotes, who helped get me a quote at the lower of the price, I think we might be able to skip to the quotes now. Okay, yeah, this is just an example of like, this.
So it looks like it has drainage underneath, so to carry the water away if it's raining. Is that correct? Is that what I'm seeing? Or is it something harder? Is that stone dust or
I think
concrete?
I think it's just crush run, basically.
Crusher run? Okay.
Yeah, so they're just basically boxed in with 1x2 pieces of wood. Put crush run down and then put the pads down, and then you secure them with screws and washers. Pretty simple process.
The stone would allow it to drain through.
Yes, it will. It'll be porous. Yep. Yeah, those are just the guidelines of how to build the tees, basically.
And we have these electronically? You sent this out? Great.
And this is more, actually, yeah, I should go to that. So PDGA requirements. Did highlight, yes, okay. So if you go to the PDGA requirements, I think it's number 5, tees. Right there, yep, okay. So at the top it says, non-earthen surface tee pads of textured cement or artificial turf are preferred. So I think a while back I talked with you about it, and you said the cost of cement would be probably more than the turf.
The issue then gets into also, it's much easier to move one of these boxes than to move the cement.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true too. Yep. And then it goes on to explain the length, like regulation length width. And then further down, I think it's halfway down the page. So it says the designated color for each set of tees used for course layout identification on scorecards should match one of the 4 recognized player skill levels that set of tees was designed for: gold, blue, white, and red. So we are just, everybody is super ecstatic that we have the opportunity to have those tees. We do see families coming out and playing, which is awesome. So, all right. So after I think we can probably skip to the tee pad quotes now. Yep. Okay, so I had 3 that were at the one on the front here. This is the one, this is the main one I want to focus on. So basically, I didn't get 3 separate ones for this exact amount of T-pads. I went and got 3 quotes for the total amount of T-pads that I would love to have on the course eventually. While it's probably more important to have the longer pads first, next year we have planned a 2-day, 144 players B-tier tournament that is likely going to draw people from all over the Northeast. So that's basically what I'm kind of prepping up for. Younger players can get by with the other T-pads, the smaller ones, but ultimately I think that they deserve to have that same quality of a pad as a more seasoned player. So this first page is the quote for the 24.
So this is blue and gold?
Blue and gold, yep. There's 18 blues, 6 golds, and I sort of calculated which ones need a longer run-up, that kind of thing. And then the only other expense, I do not have an electronic copy of it, but it's a fairly small expense. I got 2 quotes here. I have one from Home Depot and one from Lowe's for the 1x2 pressure treated boards. If we get them in boards, they're much cheaper. And since we have the wood shop at our disposal, we can cut them down ourselves and then turn them into the boards they need to be. So the total for the 1x2 inch pressure treated boards would be $108 from Home Depot. They came in a little lower than Lowe's at $123. So that is a pretty sweet deal. Scott Layfield told me you're not going to find much better than that. So we did go to 84 Lumber and Matthews and Fields as well, but they didn't have that size, and it'd end up being really expensive through them. So
does it make sense to get that size, or should we look at getting pressure treated 2x4s and rip them in half? I don't know if you've taken a look at that option. You'll get a little bit more thickness. I'm just wondering why you went by the 1x2s.
I mean, I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm okay with that. I think we were just trying to cut down on costs, I guess.
Well, I think you might want to just take a look at, so however many feet you need, cut it in half, because that, again, you would get 2 board feet for every foot of 2x4.
Sure.
And, again, if we don't have our own circular saw, you could come over and rip in my backyard, so.
Okay. Yeah.
But I would just take a look at it, because my only fear on the 1x2s is that, so essentially they'd be 2x2. I think they might have a little bit more dimensional stability than the 1x2. I'm a little bit afraid of warping of the 1x2.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. Sure.
So Mike, see your budget. How was your traffic? It was a warm summer. How was your traffic this season for the disc golf?
Good.
Yeah.
It seemed a lot busier than the first year.
I rode through and saw some traffic there. Do you ever see this being profitable?
Yeah. Currently, should I talk about the greens and how that?
Sure.
Okay, so when I first pitched it to the board, they asked me what I wanted, and I said nothing. And I just want to play for free forever. I was a little in over my head, and I did a lot of work, and I was happy to do it. At one point, it became apparent that I couldn't actually keep up with the amount of work that requires to maintain a disc golf course, especially with the mowing and the trimming. So that's when I approached Steve and I said, what can I do? I I designed it, I worked really hard on it, and I either want to not touch it and do anything with it ever again or get paid somehow. So he was gracious enough to help put in a good word and get me an application for the Parks Department, and then I got that job. So that worked out really.
Point out, he got the job on his own. I just got him the application.
He got me an application, yes. So once I did, then I started to have a little bit more influence with my coworkers, and we were sent over a few times to maintain it, and basically they mow it now, which is the one key part that I couldn't keep up with. So now that they mow it with the ground masters, it's really well taken care of. I think it's without a doubt the most well-maintained course in the area, as it should be, because I mean, it's a pay-to-play and there's not many pay-to-play courses around here. So, and then in regards to the greens fees, we worked out a deal with Mr. Domino, the owner of the golf club, that I get a percentage of the greens. And that's essentially so that I can, I guess.
Get paid back all the money that you put into this?
Yes, that, and it definitely helps when I have to spend 5 to 15 hours a week throughout every summer over there just trimming and cutting trees and
And that's
moving
when
things.
he's not working for the town. That's
Right.
when he's on his own.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Very good.
So, Jimmy Domino's runs the golf course, collects the green fees for the golf course. So he's also agreed to collect them for the disc golf course. A portion goes to Mike. Jimmy keeps a portion to cover his cost for doing that. And then basically, like I said, that covers Mike's additional labor, and Mike is always often, he sees something cool that it would be neat to have, and he goes and gets it for the place, stuff like that. So.
I think the only other thing I'd like to show you is if the videos, I'm not sure was that link?
Did you ever get her the authorization?
I told him to share it. I thought that he did, and now my
So he
phone-
sent the link out, but when she went to click on it, it said,
It looks like I've been granted access, so
Okay, perfect.
let me go.
Oh, she must be
here.
remote.
Mhm.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
And I don't know which one you want to play.
How about we can start with 3. Hole 3 is a good one. So this whole you couldn't see through it from where it starts here to the other side. I got a lot of poison ivy,
Oh, boy.
and it probably took at least 4 months just to make it through, so it was visible and looked like a hole. And then over time, it got better.
What hole is this next to on the golf course?
That's further in. So the hole that's right next to hole 2 is 18.
Okay.
Let's actually let's take a look at 18.
So, yeah.
This one's tough. So this is a gold tee way back,
Okay.
and 757 feet. You have to make it through this initial gap. And there's the red tee, so they don't have to deal with that gap.
Okay.
So the golf course is off to our left.
Yes, that's hole 2 running that way. That's a par 4.
Okay.
And then let's go to, I'd say hole 12 would be good. Last year, I had the idea to make a raised basket in this like 3 triangles kind of stacked up idea. Scott Layfield in the Parks Department helped me build them, and Jamie Day and everybody else that was in the department as well. They did a great job, and it was probably the first project we worked on as a group at the disc golf course, and it turned out really nice. The river's all the way down on the left side. So
That's a long par 5.
yeah, 666 feet. This one's tough. And I went with the red basket. I thought it was fitting.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. And then I think 17 might be another good one to show. This was the very last hole that I designed. It's a much shorter par 4, but you basically have to like play straight a little bit to the right to a landing zone, sort of where the white tee coming up and the red tee, and then you have to throw and hook it out to the left to get close enough to hopefully make your birdie. Me and my friend Nate actually built those steps. My
What hole was
dad
that
helped
next
me
to?
as well.
And what hole on the course was that one next to?
That's 17, and then you take a left and go.
No, he was asking what golf course
hole
was he
that
looking at?
17 next to?
Oh, well, I guess that would be behind 2.
Behind 2? Okay.
Yeah.
All
Mhm.
right.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah. So that's.
So, I mean, the amount is obviously within my purview to approve, but because this is parkland and stuff, I wanted everybody to get up to speed on what Mike's been doing and, make sure people understood that, we've been putting some money into this. I had a discussion with Don. He wanted to make sure it wasn't gift, but because it's essentially being installed on town property, it's actually adding to the real property of town land. So, one of the things that we've been doing is anytime I've approved funds for this, it has been for the infrastructure itself, for the, not for, something like mailers for a golf tournament or anything like that. It's only been for the real property.
Mhm.
Okay?
Mike, I just want to thank you. I've heard a lot of great things about your work, not only on this, but at the town too. And thanks for doing such a great job on the discourse.
Thank you.
I will note that his budget request, if you add the 100 approximately for screws and washers, is actually 3948.50. So, but like I said, this doesn't really need to come in front of the town board. That's why it was more of a presentation. Just wanted everybody to be aware of what Mike's been doing there. He's been doing a great job.
No, that's great. I think disc golf has become very, very popular in
It's
recent
growing.
times.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I know I have several friends that are really into it. So it's great that we have such a wonderful course right here and that you're working.
Cool. Thank you.
Unfortunately, he had plans for a tournament this past summer.
Oh,
COVID kind of.
COVID.
Yes, it did. But that's the one we're expanding to a 2-day,
Right.
144 players. We're really excited. I put
Wow.
the post up and we got a ton of likes and, reactions, and reviews are great. So I can't wait to see what it's like when we get the permanent tees for all of them eventually. So it's,
Very nice.
yeah. Oh, I didn't really talk about it, but they did say that typically the turf pads are good for 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
As far as like longevity. But I think that's pretty good.
Now, are these, never, I'm all set, never mind.
Oh.
Thought of my own answers.
Okay.
Got my questions.
Okay. Now, I guess one of the questions, sorry, I'll just ask on this, Mike, I can ask Chuck or Tim to just get or Craig to give us a ballpark as to what that would cost from a concrete. If you think concrete would last longer and be, not the issue, it's got to be textured, right?
Yeah, so
I don't know if which do you think would be
okay,
better
so I thought
for concrete?
I have thought about that a lot. Aesthetically, with how well groomed and just pretty the course is, a lot of people have talked to me about like, I really hope you get turf pads, like the concrete might take away from how beautiful the course is, It's almost, we don't have the elevation like a course like Bond Lake, but we have everything else. I mean, it's the variety of shots and just, the kind of trees and how they're placed and how everything ended up being, the way it is. So the designer in me just, turf tee pads,
Right.
just I really wanted to be turf, but, I guess we could look at it because we want to, compare and contrast the
Right.
cost and,
One other thing I'll note that the funds being used for this are essentially COVID independent, because again, they come from the contribution that came from Riverton itself, and can only be used to make improvements to Riverton. So, it's not an issue of, it's not coming from the general fund, which obviously is affected by COVID revenues, but I just wanted to make that clear, so.
Like I just do, if this is an 18-hole course,
Mhm.
what, don't we need 18 blues and 18 golds versus 12?
I only have 6 gold tees. So that's where, and there's
Otherwise,
12 of
you
the
play
shorter ones and 12 of the longer ones. And I like painstakingly figured out, okay, which one do we need? A really, really, really long wind up. And then I figured out which ones we can get by with the smaller ones and then just, kind of added them up.
Right.
Okay.
So if you're playing the golds, if there's not a gold tee, you shoot
You
from
just play the blue, yeah. And ultimately we could, some courses do that have a shared tee and they'll list both. I can take care of that with a sign shop
Right.
eventually.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay,
Thanks a lot.
thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Thank you.
Going back from the ones that we skipped over, most of them are pretty straightforward. Chuck, if you're on, what items are you looking at declaring surplus? No, I don't need the full list, but like what types of items? If you're on, you're muted.
This is I'm just gonna be Chuck for a minute.
Okay.
This is the thing that you guys talked about at the special meeting, the equipment for the Teetsworth auction.
That's right. Yeah, we just said we were gonna do it now. Thank you. I was thinking it was additional stuff. Thanks, Mike. I was thinking it was additional stuff, but thanks. I forgot it was the stuff we'd already, there was additional items that he found that could go to the auction.
Right, I remember
So,
that.
yep.
And we are gonna revise the resolution to better reflect that. We just thought of that a little too close to our start time.
No problem. Linda, I don't know if you have anything you want to talk about, any of your 4 items?
No, they're all similar. The unpaid property cleanup charges typically go on about this time every year. We need to get those to Monroe County. Our auditors have agreed to hold our audit fees the same as last year, and a few budget transfers and some new hires for some part-time folks and a full-time person in drainage.
Great. And I will note, congratulations to Linda and her team, as well as the people who work, like Becky's office and the court. One of the reasons that they are willing to hold it, their stuff at the same rate, part of what plays into that is that everything is prepped and ready for them. So they're able to get in here, do their audit and get out. It doesn't require a whole lot of expenditure of their time. So they were willing to hold the quote flat, which of course is helpful for us in terms of keeping costs under control. So
Sure it is. Great job.
Rob, you're up for bills this
Yes,
month.
Mr. Supervisor. I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
I was told there's a lot of them there.
I think Mike pushed some off to the next month. And last but not least, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the preceding town board workshop meeting? No one gonna make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the last town board minutes.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. And that covers our agenda. Is there anything else anyone wish to discuss? Hearing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Hearing no objection, meeting adjourned.